When it comes to a circuit like this, there is simply no greater all-around circuit than this one. You put cars with very little power on it, you get an absolute thrill. You put cars on it with all of the speed in the world, you still get an absolute thrill. It does 24-hour racing, it does sprint racing, it does everything in between. This is the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, and this is the Sunday Grand Prix series here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone watching around the world at this, the quarter stage of the championship. My name is Jake Sperry, and alongside me in the booth for this one is Joey Atterbury. Christian Deploy is in the director's chair. He's using the cameras provided by Dougie Beard. But what more can be said about a circuit that houses itself on the road of Liège-Bastogne-Liège, one of the great cycling classics out there. This is a track that has seen it, that has done it, and is one that can never truly be replaced in the world of motorsport. Let's get a little bit of a look around this track with our GSRC track guide.
Welcome to Spa-Francorchamps. Less than an hour's drive east from the German border, this Belgian track has come to define racing for many different eras in the sport. It's no wonder it continues to entrance drivers when you look at the stats. The 7 kilometers over the course of a lap includes more than 330 feet in elevation change as it weaves its way through the Ardennes forest. Packed into this is 19 turns, some of which are considered among the most famous in the world of racing. Corners like La Source and Blanchemont have been on the lips of drivers for decades. But by far the most notorious is Eau Rouge and Rétillon. Typically referred to in name by just the first section, it dips low and swings left, then compresses and climbs to the right up a massive hill. The sequence ends with a completely blind crest that sweeps to the left and leads onto the incredibly long Kemmel Straight. The bravery required to be fast through there will pay off towards one of the most popular passing spots at Lacombe. Eau Rouge is exemplary of the rest of the circuit though. Most of the turns are incredibly fast and many include much of that signature elevation change. As jaw-dropping as the track is, you have to remember that this is the modern truncated layout. The old one, raced until 1979, was 14 kilometers in length, yet carried an average speed of 150 miles per hour. Present-day safety measures do cut down on the danger, but even in recent history, the circuit has proven deadly. It's clear why this track continues to be revered and respected by racers the world round.
This is a circuit that's always really popular with the drivers out there in iRacing. It's one that often gets drivers talking and racing because it is one where you always have the chance, Joey, to go and make overtakes. The run to Blanchemont, the run up the Kemmel Straight towards Lacombe, both of those corners or those sections of track offer great chances for great racing, and that's why drivers love it.
Huge straightaways with big-time brake zones, promotes passing, and that's exactly what Spa has to offer. 19 turns, 4.35 miles in length, and when we talk about elevation, it is everywhere throughout this circuit. In fact, after turn number 1, La Source, you start going down immediately downhill. You got the big Eau Rouge Rétillon compression up there, but you're right, Jake. I think when we talk about Spa, it's always a driver favorite. I think it's always a fan favorite as well because of those passing areas, because of the racing that it produces. You have the slipstream. It's powerful here, so you get pack racing and lots of passing.
Yeah, it's that mentality of knowing not just how to make a move, but when to make one as well at this 7 kilometer and 4 meter circuit out that we've got here at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. First time that this series runs with the brand new patch applied to the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, giving a graphical update of this circuit, adding a few more areas where this track can be difficult out there on circuit. But let's talk championship for just one moment, because Marco Sanfilippo has simply put been fantastic at the start of this season. 243 points. He's already 70 clear of his brother Danilo, with Topi Courtaniemi behind him in third. It's then John Olsen and Dylan Freckleton fourth and fifth, with AJ Roper up into sixth position. Christophe Demey and Jason Clapper seventh and eighth, split by just 1 point, and 1 point splitting the reigning champion Jack David Spickett and Jean-Francois Boscus. So work to be done to try and find a few gaps there. Joey, F2 looks a little bit closer.
And the only thing between the F1 and the F2 standings is that driver's iRating. John Stevens currently leading the way with 130 points. 33 points back is Tomas Bartfai, and then Thomas Silbernagel very nipping at the heels of Tomas. They're only 5 points back from second place. Ben Summers and Daniel Gallis inside the top 5 with Jason Krakowiak, Herner, Clapper, Long, and Kleber Mora rounding out the top 10.
It's nice to see that Kleber Mora is doing a good job there in that 10th position as we get ourselves situated with where we are today. Of course, this will be a 13-round season, not a 12-round season, due to the fact, of course, that we've got an extra week here in iRacing. So we'll go for a week 14 because of Christmas coming up on the horizon. It's a 21-lap race here today, open setup, so everyone's going to have a car that works maybe slightly differently to everybody else. You've got no spare car to save you either, so if you do find yourself in the barriers around here or go skittering across the gravel, there's no way to get yourself out of trouble. As with every iRacing official server that is out there, it's a drive-through penalty at 17 instant points and a disqualification at 25. So everyone has got to be on their best behavior as they travel around this circuit, which means, Joey, that when it comes to this circuit, which used to be a notorious place to pick up instant points, they've relaxed it over previous years and have brought it into a state where it's now one of the most loved racing circuits out there as we focus into qualifying at the moment. And Thomas Briggs from Club Texas making his way through Lake Coon.
Wait to see how the new Spa really races with these Lotus 79s. You're right, they've kind of relaxed the track limits a little bit, and me coming from the real world side of racing, I love seeing it. There's nothing more frustrating than when you're using the track and maybe you overstep it by an inch and you see that incident pop up and all of a sudden that lap is trashed, especially here in qualifying. So I think maybe the drivers are going to be a little bit more I should say careless with those track limits because you can abuse them a little bit more.
You certainly can. Drivers like to accumulate them and then use them late in the session to either try and find a way to make a move or use it to defend. Daniel Gallis down in 21st position currently. It's a 30-car field that we have here today. And the number 25 from Club Diach has just lost a place to Dylan Freckleton, who's moved inside the top 10. And over the line goes Gallis for a 2:05.7 to go 13th fastest. So definitely a good time there. And so too, his name's so long it goes off our graphic. Guillermo Martin Gonzalez Diaz over the line to 16th position, getting that lap time in late. Qualifying is complete, and the grid will stack up as follows, with car number 3 on pole position, that being Topi Courtaniemi up on top, but the championship leader will be directly alongside him on the front row. That is Marco Sanfilippo. Kimmo Viliakainen, a champion of former years, is third, with Brandon Roseborough in 4th position. Miko Kito will start from 5th, with Danilo Sanfilippo 6th. And you've got the current iRacing Grand Prix Tour Championship leader, Jacob Reed, here today. He starts 7th with AJ Roper in 8th position. It's then Alejandro Riero in 9th position, and he is joined by Dylan Freckleton in 10th.
Jean-Francois Boscus will roll off in 11th with Bjorn Ackerman next to him in the 12th place position. Daniel Gallis in 13th with Timothy Vandenberg in 14th. Jack Kent rolling off in 15th with that name, Guillermo Martin Gonzalez Diaz. When you got 4 names, you know you're going to be fast, starting in 16th. Mickey Fries in 17th, Nathan Finnegan 18th, Sam Moran 19th, and Barry West rounding out the top 20.
It's a 31-car field, so they'll all go through. Josh Brain and Tamas Bartfai on row number 11. Christophe Demey starts 23rd with John Stevens in 24th. It's then Cristo Chinmay and Antonio Alvarez on row 13 with Mauro Micheletti, the last driver to set a time. All the other drivers separated by their iRating, so Jason Clapper starts ahead of Gerard Boldu, Yanni Lehmann, and Thomas Briggs, who was unable to set a lap time. He will go from the 31st position of the grid. One of the shortest runs to turn 1 they will have here today. The Lassour's hairpin sits at just about 400 meters over towards the opening turn, and it's a slightly on-camber corner, so you do need to hook it up to the apex as they get themselves situated. They'll have 15 seconds from this point onwards to get onto the grid, or they will start from one of the most interesting pit lanes that they have out there this season. But you take a look at the Palermo colours of Marco Sanfilippo. He'll want to prove himself against former champions likes of Courtaniemi and Kimmo Villiakainen, who are there along with. Lights on for 21 laps at Spa, lights out for 21 laps here at Spa, and it's a good start by Courtaniemi off of the front. Villiakainen got a huge kick and wheel spin heading through the opening section immediately early onto the brakes. You don't want to trip over through last source. The top 10 drivers all get themselves through safe, and they'll tackle the Red River as they now charge up to Eau Rouge, through towards Radion, and then the Kemmel Straight follows. Bit of side-by-side in the background.
I think that's Freckleton and Ackerman narrowly. Oh, now Freckleton gets into the back of Riero. Ackerman is able to avoid, but we're going to go 3 wide down the Kemmel Straight on the opening lap. Check out that purple car. That is the number 7 of Dylan Freckleton right in the middle. Jean-Francois Boscus trying to make it up the inside.
Oh, and this is where it gets deadly on the opening lap. Drivers still unable to jostle as they now run through Lakewood. Freckleton's got what he wants. Boscus just about defending against Jack Kent. For position, highest point of the circuits here. Dropping back down the hill for Malmedy corner. Daniel Gallis staring with Nathan Finnegan and Guillermo Martin Gonzalez Diaz, who is there as well in the circuit. A crazy start, but at the front, Courtaniemi clear. Marco Sanfilippo following. We go and look at Nico Quito, who has lost a couple places. 3 of them actually. He's lost a few off the start. He's now behind brother Danilo.
Danilo also lost a couple of spots, and there goes, I think that was Jean-Francois Boscus through that downhill turn number 10, made a little bit of contact, and he's going to find himself all the way at the back of the pack.
He was washed out through Pouon, and he took the tangle front to rear with Daniel Gallis, and that's what's dropped him back. Finnegan now trying to get himself into position to try and find the move. Daniel Gallis is the car in front that he'll be looking at this moment in time, and the chase that will immediately follow now through towards Blanchimont corner, and of course the run to the final chicane out on circuit. Villiakainen staring down the championship leader Marco Sanfilippo, who jams on the brakes, and Villiakainen goes in a little bit deep here, so he'll have to compromise the line to bring himself back, knowing that Braden Roseborough is there from Club Midwest, the number 2 car in this field, eyeing up a move for the podium, as there's Bjorn Ackerman going slow.
Only 1 lap complete here, and you're right, Ackerman maybe giving up a position to Dylan Freckleton here. Maybe on the opening lap, cut one of those chicanes a little bit too close, and you can get a slowdown time penalty from it. But Bjorn's been one of our more aggressive drivers, and soon finally tucked back in line. He wasn't up nearly alongside enough, but here we go, down this Kemmel Straight. Now he's using the draft to his advantage.
You couldn't get much closer to the rear gearbox there of Dylan Freckleton, and on the power, 279 kilometers to 80 on the straight. 4 clicks quicker than Freckleton, breezing around the outside into Lakewood and getting the move sorted. One thing I really do love about what they've done with this update, look at how much gravel there is around the circuit. You'd have a field day if you were on a construction site looking around this place, because they have made this challenge a whole lot more difficult at Spa.
Look at the train that is just up front. Toby is not running away with this thing. You call it, 3/4 of a second ahead of Marco Sanfilippo, but then Kimmo's right there, Roseborough's right there, Jacob Reed, AJ Roper. The top 6 include the top 7 all in a line.
Yeah, we'll take another look here at what happened to Jean-Francois Boscus. You can see side by side with Jack Kent into Pouon. He runs wide through the corner, and Gallis, the natural racing line, goes over that curve. He just couldn't get out of it quick enough, and as such, with the car washing out to the outside, Jean-Francois Boscus a passenger on the outside line, and nowhere for him to go. Brandon Roseborough keeping himself into position here with Jacob Reed just behind, who's definitely no slouch when it comes to the Lotus 79. He's more akin to having a pro stripe. Once upon a time, he found himself racing in what is now the IndyCar Butt Kicker Series out there on iRacing, but he's sits there with a really good opportunity. Ackerman trying to charge around the outside. He gets the move done on Miko Quito, who will now have to try and attack back with power onto the front stretch, hoping he's got a move on that outside line. Brilliant stuff between the Finn and the German out there on circuit. Ackerman is just holding what he needs to, but he needs drive again.
I love what I'm seeing out of Bjorn here, but this is going to be a tense moment next to each other going into the highest speed section of the racetrack. They both come out the other side. They left enough room, but look at the downforce setting on Ackerman's car. Call him the dark horse, maybe even the dark unicorn with that livery. Using the top speed, here comes Freckleton. He thought about making it 3 wide. Who's going to go deepest on the brakes? Bjorn finally secures the position.
That could have been disastrous there if there was any more car put in by Dylan Freckleton. He very nearly found himself in trouble. Christo Chinmay also in a big battle at the moment. I think he's just lost out to Tamas Barclay, leading the train with Jason Clappo. Loved his last first challenge. Thomas Briggs, Josh Brain, John Stevens, Antonio Alvarez, and Gerard Boldu were all there in this group down in the mid-pack around the top 20. Roseborough now is eyeing up his chance against Villiakainen. That gap agonising at 1.2 seconds. Marco Sanfilippo might be seeing Toppy run away if he's not careful.
It was really that last lap, a 206.2 out of our leader compared to a 206.5 out of Marco. So over a quarter of a second immediately gapped out right there between first and second. I wonder if that's just kind of Courtney's car coming in, finally having that tire temperature and settling into the rhythm. But this battle for what is, call it, third and fourth, Roseborough's been all over the back of Villiakainen. He just needs to get that little bit closer to be able to use that toe up one of these straightaways.
Marco's quicker on the straights, I think, here compared to Toppy Courtney, not by much, by enough. Roseborough can't find himself close to the Raccoon Racing car that's there just in front of Villiakainen. The issue that he's running into is, well, if he's got a car in front he's slipstreaming off of, there's not really much that he can do to argue. And a 5.7 now by Courtney. You're really sensing these drivers are now starting to turn the screw and really get what they want. Bjorn hasn't got a train behind him, he's got a full locomotive.
But I think that Bjorn is actually the fastest of this group, because remember, he had to pass Freckleton, he had to pass Quito, and now he is basically towing along everybody else. And that dirty lap from Bjorn equaled Danilo Cianfilippo, who's right there in 7th place right in front of him. I think if he can keep it up, he can close that gap.
Well, that's what he's aiming for, all the way to the inside, and there goes the look over to the outside once more by Miko Quito, but he doesn't have enough to make that move. Look at how they shadow up into Lake Coombe, and there's AJ Roper trying to get it done as he'll lose out the place to Jacob Reed, who goes sweeping around the outside of Malmedy corner. How many times do you see that move completed?
And, you know, Danilo in that car that's just out of screen right there, he's loving it, because if they are fighting too wide, it's just going to draw him back up to it. And you're talking about the commitment level, especially around the outside of some of these corners, Jake. Not only that, but a lot of them are downhill. Gravity's working against you as well.
Oh, this is a very hilly circuit, the circuit of Spa-Francorchamps. Not as hilly as it used to be, of course, when this track was about twice as long and went around famous corners such as the Master Kick. We'll take a look on the GSRC replay here of that pass from Jacob Reed. So he got it done down the inside in the British Racing Green. Roper, the Canadian, attacked back, but then when it came to Malmedy, Jacob Reed just hooked it up and got the drive.
Just was able to put the right foot down and through that short shoot straightaway, was able to at least get that little bit of an advantage into the brake zone, which secured the pass. And doesn't look like AJ Roper is giving up at all. I suggest kind of hook that fishing line onto that rear wing, let him tow you along.
Villiakainen under pressure right now. He's at risk of being dropped by the group. Out in front, 1.6 seconds now back of Marco Sanfilippo, and Brandon Roseborough has got himself a really good chance of finding this pass along this stretch, because there'll be no slipstream for Villiakainen to go out there and save his cotton stock. Up the hill they will look, then Eau Rouge the left, running along the big right-hander, Ronnie on the left up the top of the hill, and now on towards the Kemmel Straight, and the difference, I think, is going to be stark. Villiers-Kynan at 273, Roseborough's already 6 kilometers an hour quicker, going to pull over to the inside of the circuit. It's a battle of brakes, they tip into the corner. Villiers-Kynan running the outside, has confidence and holds.
Just stayed on the racing line, was able to really use the threshold braking, but Roseborough is close enough. Does he make a late lunge? It's so difficult down there, like we saw into turn 8 from AJ Roper earlier, but looks like right now Roseborough might have the number of Kimmo right in front of him, but we still have, what, another 15 laps left? If you are patient, you can let the door open itself sometimes.
You certainly can. I've just noticed 2 places lost by Bjorn Ackermann coming out then of the Malmedy, sorry, not Malmedy, he got it lost at Bruxelles going down the hill. He very much caught a massive wiggle down the hill and dropped a couple places as Villiers-Kynan still holds his station at the moment, but is going to be looking in the mirrors every single stage of the way. Now, talk to me about that middle sector, because this is a circuit that does create a few headaches when it comes to setup choice.
It does. It's typically medium downforce or low downforce. And when we talk about practice or qualifying, I'm typically packing on the downforce here at Spa because you want the confidence through that middle sector. You can gain so much time. However, when it comes to the race, you need to have a true race car, and a race car is fast with top speed. So qualifying, maybe more medium downforce. The race, you need to be able to make the pass on the straight line. You need to live in the low downforce range.
A response by Marco Sanfilippo at 205.372. Fastest lap of the race. Reed has now lost back the place here to AJ Roper. And AJ has been fantastic over the course of this season, inside the top 10, and he's really found an extra gear this season here, Joey.
His last lap time was a 206.2 from that orange number 17. Compare that to the 2 cars that are battling right in front of him, 206.5s, but right now he's got to worry about Jacob Reed because he is just going to draft right on by. Honestly, I think that's okay, because if they kind of peloton and work together to catch, who is it, Kimmo and Marco Sanfilippo right up the road, I think that's a good strategy.
It is a great strategy, but when you've got Kimmo Villiers-Kynan, who is the equivalent of Primoz Roglic in this race, it is very tough to tandem. Get yourself up there. Dylan Freckleton here in P10 out on circuit. He's eyeing up Bjorn Ackermann for a place. GSRC replay then here for you. This is Gerard Boldu, who runs a little bit over the curb, and how on earth has he got away with that? He's had a light tap to the left rear of the car, but that looked like it was heading straight for retirement.
He did a great job to do that full sim racer move with the both feet in, using the gas and the brakes, and was able to keep it off of that guardrail and basically salvage his race. I do see him still out there.
Yeah, and Jack Kent starting to try and find some inventive places to make some moves. Don't often see him in Safania. He couldn't get it done on Alejandro Riero, but he is really trying to pressure him right now, and this group's falling off of Freckleton.
I think that's the big info that most people forget, is that in these big trains, I know that we don't have DRS, but it kind of acts the same way. When you're that third, fourth car line, it's really close to draw in that closing gap, but Daniel Gallis all over the back of Jack Kent, looking to the inside. Looks like all 3 not quite going to be able to make a move, but look at how much it condenses between really the 4 of them.
Another fastest lap for Marco Sanfilippo as that group continues to bring itself closer and closer, and you feel that there's only so long that you can run. Line astern before something has to give. Much wider line by Alejandro Riero. He's got to be a little bit careful about that and how wide he decides to run his Wrangler car out there on circuit, because he'll realise that as he tries to get it all there and together, Jack Kent is climbing the hill, hoping that he can get the launch that he wants, and if he can't get it, then Daniel Gallis is staring it down. This is where the high speed's needed, up the hill, top end speed the priority, and there they go to side by side. Jack Kent looking for this move to dive this one on through, and there's nowhere to go for Riero. He loses out one, Gallis chokes up the circuit, and suddenly Nathan Finnegan wants to get a drive up the top of Malmedy.
that yellow car. Finnegan looking to the inside of turn number 8 here. It's so difficult. It is so steep downhill. Looks like he will secure the pass on Daniel Gala, so move Nathan Finnegan up into 13th place. He's now got Alejandro Riero right in front of him, while Jack Kent is trying to throw up the deuces and not look in those rearview mirrors anymore.
Well, he's trying to throw up the deuces. He's trying to say, see you in the douches. He really knows how much he wants to try and get himself going forward. And Nathan Finnegan has already got himself now up into that 13th position. That puts him +5 for the day, and one of the big movers inside of the top 15. Jason Clapper, the biggest mover in the field, no surprises, in 17th position. He's up 11 so far in this race, and we're only at the 1/3 stage of this one, and it really is set up for a couple of two-car tandem battles between now and the end of this race. It looks like that's how the packs are starting to form here. Two drivers break away from two drivers.
It can be that way at Spa. It can be a little bit drafty, and so if you've got a driver or a car setup that's very, very fast for the race, meaning that top speed like I was talking about earlier, you can pull a competitor along, and if they don't have that same setup, if they're in the slipstream, they'll hang out right there, but as soon as you break that slipstream, that's when those gaps start to create.
Getting busy in the late pack as Josh Brain looked to Antonio Alvarez for position and leaves himself vulnerable on the straight to Christophe Demey, looking to try and make his F2 championship aspirations known. He's on the outside, trying to launch one into the corner, really get the power and drive off of the exit here, and he'll get it to boot too. So running along the endurance pits, over towards Eau Rouge and Radion once again. Christophe Demey gets it before the corner and confirms his place gain.
He can use that slipstream now. He's got Alvarez directly in front of him. See if Josh Brain has got that top speed, but looks like he's not quite closing in really that much in order to make a threat going into this break zone here of turn number 5 and 6. So a nice move by Christophe Demey. I noticed on that opening lap, he actually fell down a couple positions. So a little bit of a redemption here in the middle part of the race.
Yeah, he got a slowdown on lap 2, which meant that he really did drop down the order. A real shame for him and his run, but he's trying to recover it back. Freckleton here in P10, looking to try and hunt down Bjorn Ackerman for position, which would be for 9th place, with Miko Kito just about a ways away. We'll take another look here with the GSRC replay. This is Thomas Briggs going right down to the inside of the circuit, trying to find this move, having to leave a bit of space. He gets shuffled out there in the wash and loses out there in terms of that moment. Disastrous they went through, and that is not what the doctor ordered for him. Finding out what happens when you race in top split. Drivers do have a tendency to bully.
Curious about the data between Freckleton, Ackerman, and Kito. I'm talking about 8th, 9th, and 10th place that we're watching, because Ackerman has had really an up and down roller coaster ride of a race so far. Remember, he was so aggressive early on, made his way in front of Miko, but now he finds himself stuck in between himself and Dylan back here. That last lap time from Bjorn, a 206.3, Kito in front of 206.0.
And that's a mistake at La Source, just going a little bit too heavy on the brakes, and I think that's where Bjorn Ackerman's overdriving the car here, knowing how important it is to stay in slipstream. Freckleton now's just got to line up Eau Rouge and Radion, and he's got a great chance to find a way past even what Unicorn Power can do. It's not brake horsepower that is running that engine by Bjorn Ackerman. He uses brake Unicorn Power. He wiggles the steering wheel there, trying to get a little bit of feeling. Over to the inside goes Dylan Freckleton, saying, I want it. On the brakes early goes Bjorn Ackerman and lets him go and have it. You take a look at him there in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Nonplussed as he goes through. He's just in concentration mode and realizes, well, I know what's next. I've got to find my way back through.
I think that maybe Finnegan and Riero had an issue, but as we watch this, do you see the new player in that orange car? That is Jack Kent in the last lap, a 205.8. That is 3/4 of a second faster than both of the cars directly in front of him. Keep an eye on that 15.
Alejandro Riero is out of the race. Contact with Nathan Finnegan up at Les Combes. He went up in the air and both of them took a massive amount of hit. Finnegan has continued on, but he will have a hefty amount of damage that he's trying to get back with. So there is some disaster out there over the course of the race for Finnegan and for Riero, who is now out. Roseborough continuing to stay close. We've also got Christo Chinmay and Josh Brain in the pits as well. Here's the instant, and watch the air, Joey.
Oh, just wheel-to-wheel contact and then second contact as well. Such a shame, because I felt like Riero and Finnegan had a good race going on, and we're right there inside the top 10. But this is back up front. Roseborough has caught in on that number 5 of Kimmo Vilakainen. The other one that we haven't really watched too much, Marco has closed it in 3/4 of a second behind our leader.
Yeah, he's certainly making that progress, and that's being seen. And Mickey Friesen wants to try and find his pass here. That's on Timothy van den Berg. He gets the pass done. 4th position. Van den Berg, a driver who from time to time can find himself as a top 5 driver, not necessarily having what he wants. Marco Sanfilippo pulls up to the back at halfway and says, you're not having everything your own way in the Pike from Beach sim racing car that Topi Kotkaniemi drives. Marco is here to make a statement.
I'm going to start to watch these two a little bit more technically, because that last lap time as Ackerman and Freckleton are side by side. Jack Kent being patient back there. Freckleton up over the curbs. That's going to kind of whoa him up a little bit. Good heads up driving from Jack Kent to also lift off the throttle, not run into the back of Freckleton. But back to my point, I'm going to watch our front two. See maybe if Marco's a little bit faster in one section of the racetrack, or if Topi's faster in another section of the racetrack, because that last lap time, nearly a half-second difference between the two.
I think the big difference maker here is that Kotkaniemi's got a car that's built for downforce. You've got Marco Sanfilippo, he's got a car built for the straight line. This is what happened to Christo Chinmay and Josh Brain, I believe, out on circuit. Same corner as they went through over towards Malmedy, and up over the top, Chinmay grabs the curb and straight to the inside, tangles back across the circuit, and upside down goes Josh Brain for a scary accident. Race car upside down is always expensive, Joey.
Oh, race car spelled backwards as race car, but it does not spell the same way when it is upside down. You never want to be on your roof. Doesn't matter if it's a production car or an open wheeler. That was a huge accident, and quite honestly, one of the more narrow sections of this racetrack.
Yeah, right up at the top of the hill, often a very difficult place. Topi responds, 2:04.5 there to gain 2/10 on Marco Sanfilippo. Roseborough continuing to keep himself close, and these two right now, Vilakainen and Roseborough, they have just seen Jacob Reed and AJ Roper pull up onto the back, because the difference maker here is that Reed and Roper are not battling, they're just using the pace to try and chase on along.
The gap right now between Roseborough and Reed is that agonizing, call it 1.1 seconds. And you see AJ Roper well within the slipstream. So let's see if AJ's going to use the peloton. No, it's just like what you were saying. They're working together. They're not battling. They're not going side by side, and they are closing the gap.
They get the sense that Jacob Reed might be the faster of the two, and AJ Roper's just going to effectively try and hold on. Not if you're going to go wide there, though, because that will open up the door. AJ Roper's not going to take no a second time. Down the hill at Bruxelles. AJ Roper, opportunistic.
Just have to be careful, because it was 1.1 seconds after the Kemmel Straight, and now because of that pass, it is 1.5 seconds back to Brandon Roseborough. So you just have to make the passes efficiently so you don't lose that track time, that headway in that battle that you're gaining on.
Yeah, so being efficient, I think, is the most important thing around this circuit. It's not just how you make the move, but how long does it take you? Because if it takes 2-3 corners, Joey, you're so easily going to lose the group in front, and that's what the new breed of driver out there and the new breed of sim racer always keeps in front of the mind. How quickly can I lose that draft in front of me if I try and make a move? And that's why the top end of sim racing sometimes has an element of pack mentality, as Jason Clapper absolutely hounds Mickey Friesen.
I think it'll only be probably this next straightaway before Jason Clapper is able to get around Mickey Friesen. And to your point, Jake, I think that in sim racing, you can actually see the draft, right? You can have the relative box pulled up as Clapper well within the toe. He's going to wait till probably after Blanchimont here, after this fast left-hand kink. Now use the toe a little bit more, pop to the right side into this bus stop chicane, but actually is not close enough, didn't get the run. But to my point about the toe, at 0.8 seconds, you can physically see it pulling you along. At 1.2 seconds, you don't see it pulling you along. So in the sim, yeah, that toe, you can actually use it as a tool.
You can. It's definitely a case that you feel a lot more comfortable at 0.8 of a second than you do at 1.2 in terms of what you can do along the long straights here. Marco Sanfilippo tucks back up underneath again of Topicourtaniemi to 0.4, and Jacob Reed tucks up underneath AJ Roper's number 17 machine. Jacob Reed, now a member of the 8,000 iRacing Club, which is what we would call now in the business here, Joey, the top 1%.
Oh, and Roper makes a mistake right in front of the driver we were just talking about, so Jacob Reed going to take that position back. But to your point about the efficiency, that was not efficient. You got to limit the mistakes. It doesn't matter if you're Jacob or AJ. You need to have the more consistent driver leading the pair to close it in.
And that's where Brandon Roseborough has done something really well with Kimmo Viliakainen. Knows how quick he is, knows that he can force the pressure on, but hasn't really thrown too much there. Kimmo having to take 2 turns through the second part of Vanya. He's really starting to sense here in the second half of this race that he is going to be in this one for the podium. And Roseborough might just be waiting for this straight, lap 21, to try and make the pass.
It was like the front tires were maybe a little bit too hot on Viliakainen's car through that sector, and look at the toe from Roseborough. He is right underneath the back of the rear wing, looking to the right side of Viliakainen, but way deep on the brakes goes that number 5, is able to defend.
Confidence is skyrocketing as Marco Sanfilippo now puts the fastest lap in. Jack Kent stares at an opportunity, thinking about 3 wide, is he? As Ackerman just about gets it slowed up in the middle of the corner, balks the run through all of them. It's slightly off camera through both of the corners of the final chicane, so it's very easy to stumble through that section, but Freckleton nowhere to go. Jack Kent just staring at the back of this group. This is frustrating. You see the different lines being taken. Roseborough now up the hill has a chance to make the move on Viliakainen. Look at the run.
Lots more of a head of steam. Viliakainen really just choosing the racing line. Let's see how confident he is on the brakes going into the turn 5-6 section. You saw him go crazy deep into the bus stop. He's going to try to hang it around the outside. Finally has to yield that position. Brandon Roseborough is through after 13 laps.
Yeah, it took a long time, but finally got what his just desserts were. Ackerman having to defend Jack Kent. Going around the outside now. Can he hold the inside? He'll have to go the long way around Malmedy to get it sorted. And no, he can't do what Jacob Reed did earlier. So Jack Kent's bottled up now as well. And they've got to be so careful about how they battle, because look at Daniel Gallis trying to close in. 2:06 flat on that last run. A full 6/10 quicker than Ackerman on that last go through. And Jacob Reed has caught Kimmo Viliakainen.
I mean, if you're throwing out lap times, Daniel Gallis 2:06.0, faster than all of them. Timothy Vanderberg 2:05.3, Jason Clapper 2:04.9. So I know that we got 9 laps left, but there is a lot of really fast, really strong cars right in the middle of the pack that is closing it in towards the front.
Yeah, they want those positions, and they realise that this is an end-game ploy that they are running at. They want an extra position here and an extra position there. And I can't help but feel, when it comes to the front of the field, with Marco Sanfilippo, his best chance, Joey, is going to be on the final lap up at the Kemmel Straight into Lake Coombe. That's the best place he can pass Courtaniemi. He sets another purple lap time.
4.1, so definitely scorching this Spa race surface as we watch Jacob Reed try to hang on to the back of Kimmo Viliakainen right here. I wonder if Kimmo just has the setup maybe more for the front half of the race, and just the car is starting to fall off, because that last lap time, a 2:06.2,
oh, Bjorn,
that shows me that he's struggling.
Well, Bjorn Ackerman going slow, and Marco Sanfilippo now side by side for the race lead. Topicourtaniemi down on the inside. Marco has a little bit of understeer, holds the inside line. They go wheel to wheel, and Toppy holds for the moment, but watch out for the up and under as Marco Sanfilippo fires his first salvo at the fin.
Look at this. Let's see if it's going to continue now. Last week, oh, and this is Jack finally getting around Freckleton down the Kemmel Straight. Dylan's going to try to lunge late on the brakes up the inside. Jack Kent's going to defend around the outside. I do think that Jack and that orange car are a little bit faster, but Freckleton is able to defend.
Well, Jack right now needs his Daxter to go and work with him at this point, and there is Jacob Reed. He is trying everything he can to get around a driver like Kimmo Villiakainen, who has been a former champion in this series, has been fantastic when it comes to pace, but at the moment here, he's dealing with, I would say, a little bit of race rust with this car. We haven't really seen him over a number of seasons. It's like trying to get back into an old pair of boots. They don't always feel exactly the same.
Kimmo definitely slipped up down there through that section, had trouble putting the power down, so that just puts Jacob Reed literally underneath the rear wing. I don't think it's going to happen before Blanchimont is just too narrow, and you really have to force your competitor almost off track here, so as long as you can stay right up along the gearbox, let's see if Jacob Reed puts the nose to the inside here. He forced Kimmo to go as deep as possible, try to make him make a mistake.
Villiakainen a little bit heavier on the brakes there, and that of course will mean that he's using a little bit more of the rubber life on the tyres he goes through. Now, they're not going to be necessarily tyre limited here when it comes to this series. It's fuel that's more of the problem here, and that's why you see the lap times get quicker and quicker as the race goes on here, Joey, because of course it's all about that fuel mileage. Go back to the front, because watch Marco Sanfilippo. Toppy's gone defensive at the front of the field, and here comes the chance again. Outside line looking for Marco Sanfilippo, just not enough for him up at the top of the hill with 7 laps to go.
There is a slight setup difference between the two. It might even be just a click of wing difference as we're 3 wide here. Jacob Reed forcing the issue. Kimmo Villiakainen, though, is going to snag it back up into 3rd.
Nothing that Brandon Roseborough can do about that. That was beautifully concocted. AJ Roper in the background goes for a helter-skelter ride and holds on to it.
Yeah, and I see that Kent made contact with Freckleton and almost comes back onto the racetrack. There's more contact maybe between the two as Kent has heavy damage on the wing.
Yeah, no, front left on that wing. He is going to be limping home, and he's got the black and orange mechanical flag. His day's done.
Such a shame, because I really felt that Jack had such a good drive up through the field, had several battles between himself and Freckleton, getting through Bjorn Ackerman. It's always frustrating to end it on the side of the road.
It absolutely is. So close to the end, through the campus corner, and now to Stavilo, the long right-hander, leading on the road back to home. This used to be a street circuit all the way up until 2007 with the changes that they made to this track, and this was the road you tried to charge up through towards the small little town of Spa, which is there down at the bottom of the hill, and then of course Francorchamps, which is up the top of the hill as you then look to go forward. That house has been there on the left as you walk through towards La Source for over 80 years there at that stage, and you can see it just there as they now rush on forward and start to run away once more. More mistakes from Roper as he's gone around the circuit. He'll lose out more places he's spun, so he's struggling now, but Courteniemi is in a paradox, and he realises he's not got the pace here because Marco Sanfilippo has uncorked a rocket ship with his Ford DFV Cosworth engine, moving over to the outside. He's got to get clearance. Brilliant side drop by Courteniemi, holding it as close as he dares as they go through this section. The downforce important here for Toppy as he holds at Malmedy around the outside. Oh, what a slide, what a hold as they go to Bruchel. Still it's close. Courteniemi down the hill, still holds on. He will not say no for an answer.
Topi is defending. He realizes that he does have a little bit of a disadvantage on that straight line speed, so he has to be defensive through the corners. He has to be aggressive where he's got that downforce grip. And for reference, it was about 4.5 tenths of a second between Topi and Marco when they came out of that La Source hairpin, that turn number 1. So keep an eye. If it's less than 4 tenths, Marco Sanfilippo can have a huge run.
Big lunges there on Thomas Briggs. Patrick Samaran getting himself there. Sorry, that's Thomas Bartfly there who's trying to get through. Barry West, a big favourite here in this series. Goes to the inside, no room there. Look to the outside, no room there. Stuck behind.
See if he's able to maybe come up with a new way around Bartfly here as they start to plunge down the hill. Back up to our leader. It is now only a 1/4 of a second between Topi and Marco, but 4.5 tenths. That was enough to get Marco ahead on the Kemmel Straight. I actually think he's a little bit closer. Let's watch the power down event coming out of turn number 1.
Well, Marco Mania in this championship to start has been nigh on unstoppable in comparison to what Topi Courtiniemi's been bringing to the table. We've got two fantastic drivers up at the highest levels right now. Topi Courtiniemi, a former champion and gunning for his first title. Marco Sanfilippo trying to give everything he can. They've built 13 seconds or 12 and a half over Kimmo Villiakainen. And up over the top of the hill, it's about as close as it was last time around. Here goes Marco Sanfilippo to the left-hand side of the circuit, climbing up the Kemmel, trying to pinch and take some side drive. Topi Courtiniemi knows how to play the draft game here at Spa. Again, side by side, too deep this time by Marco Sanfilippo. Topi holds again.
I'm going to get really nerdy right here. Marco needs to time the run down the Kemmel straight, and I thought maybe he needed to be a little bit closer in order to clear Courtiniemi going into that turn 4-5 break zone. But I actually think he needs to be more about 5.5, maybe 6/10 behind Courtiniemi going through that Radion complex, because then it will allow him the momentum to go into the break zone with the biggest advantage. Topi's able to side draft and kind of argue back down that Kemmel straightaway. It's going to come down to the timing of the run from Marco.
Speaking of arguments, look down here as we're picture in picture, because you've got third, fourth and fifth. There are going to be two bridesmaids and only one bride for that podium out there at this point, as Kimmo Villiakainen is staving Roseborough and Reed right now, and the transatlantic connection between the Worcesterman, who is there in fifth position, and Braden Roseborough from Club Midwest sitting there in fourth place. They've got to work out a way to get past the Finn.
If you ask me, I just think that Villiakainen right here is showing his comfortableness inside this car. He has a ton of miles. He knows how to race it. I do feel like Roseborough and Reed might have a little bit more speed, but just the overall comfort out of Kimmo, knowing how to close one of these races in one of these Lotus 79s is showing up.
It is, and this is where you need more than just pace. You need tactical nous, and that is what they've got. Big wiggle by Roseborough as the torque going through the rear tyres there, Joey. Absolutely spun them up.
It's all going to come down to this turn one. I call it the traction event, the drag race launch out of there. You got to be able to put the power down, but Marco officially in the draft. Let's see if Topi can come back and side draft like he is. He's going to crowd him in the middle of the racetrack, but Marco's got a fantastic run. In fact, a car length ahead going into the break zone. He's going to secure the pass for the lead.
Watch out for Courtiniemi. He's really trying to open up these corners, but it's taken away by Marco Sanfilippo. This is the part of the track where Courtiniemi is strongest, as they now drop down the hill in through Bruxelles, almost getting underneath the gearbox there. Topi Courtiniemi knows he needs a launch somewhere to give himself the pass that he wants, and this is where Marco Sanfilippo may have the advantage. Topi Courtiniemi on the defensive for the first time in 17 laps worth of racing, and now can Marco run away?
And that extra downforce is going to help Marco, or I should say less downforce is going to help Marco when he's out in the lead there, because Topi doesn't have that top speed. He just has to focus on those corner exits. If Marco can launch out of each power down traction event, he can keep Topi at an arm's length distance.
Well, you can see how hard he's pushing. He is sliding his Lotus 79 around this track, and it really is proving to be a difficult race out there to try and make sure that you can hold your station and hold your nerve. Courtiniemi keeping it close. We'll take a GSRC replay then here. This is Mikko Kito here with AJ Roper, who had a spin and fell down the order. Roper trying to go around the outside, gets the move done, but Mikko Kito tries to get himself the way back, rushing through the next section. Nothing he could do.
Watch our leaders once again. Jake, remember when we were talking about the difference in setups and how I was saying that qualifying, you want to pack on the downforce, but in the race, you don't want any downforce at all. I feel like this is a great example. Topi's just been so wicked fast through qualifying and through the first half of the race, but when it comes down to getting to the checkered flag, you need the top speed.
Well, he's actually quicker in the draft by about 4 kilometers an hour, but that's not going to do anything. He peeks into the mirrors, hoping to find a mistake out of the Sicilian that's there in front of him. And Marco Sanfilippo is doing what he needs to right now, which is, I need to build a gap. I need to keep Topi Courtaniemi at an arm's length. And there was a time in this series where that would have been an impossibility to keep Topi Courtaniemi behind you, because he'd been down the road by 10 to 20 seconds each and every single week. This is a Herculean effort here that Courtaniemi's now going to have to do to try and wrestle back a victory here at Spa.
I love your point, because you're right. There's been so many Finnish drivers, including Topi, that have just come in here and completely dominated. I've been extremely impressed with the Sanfilippos, especially Marco. Last week at Imola, it was him and Topi as we get a GSRC replay. I think Tomas Bartfai had some issues a little bit earlier. Let's watch this number 29 car, the white and red, as it comes around this right-hander. Maybe a little bit of contact, three wide, and another car up on its roof in the same section of racetrack.
Oh, and that's what happens when you get wheel-to-wheel contact. The effect that pretty much is the Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen at Monza back in 21. You get that kick up over the wheel, and that's what generates the height. It's something that constantly happens. Throw up a couple popsicle sticks in the air. You've got 14 kilometers and 8 meters left of racing. Marco Sanfilippo to hold Topi Courtaniemi off, but Topi here puts a 2:03.3 down on the books. He closed it down slightly as he runs through the last horse hairpin. Watch out as well for third, because you look down at the bottom of your screen, that is Jacob Reed trying to angle up his opportunity here with Kimmo Villiakainen. That would be a huge move if he'd be able to get that one sorted and in the book. But look at that gap, it pulls out to almost half a second here for Topi Courtaniemi to try and chase this down. Once more on the straight, he'll be close, but not close enough. He needs an extra 0.2 of a second, you feel, to make that move, Joey.
I think he needs more than that. It was 4.5 of a second that Marco was able to close up and make the pass on Topi. Well, guess what? Courtaniemi was at that same distance as Kimmo Villiakainen. Full defensive serpentine trying to hold off Jacob Reed. Looks like he will do it this lap, but back to my point, Topi came out 4.5 in the slipstream behind Marco. Couldn't even close it up to 0.3. He needs to pretty much be on the gearbox of our leader.
He certainly does. AJ Roper makes the move then through. He gets past Mikko Keto. Villiakainen using every trick in the book, but he's just lost the place. Jacob Reed has caught him napping there on the exit of Bruce Shells. Oh my goodness me. He took advantage of a small lapse in concentration. The back stepped out for Villiakainen and through went the Worcesterman.
You called it. Villiakainen just got on the gas a little bit too aggressive, spun up the rear tires. Jacob Reed said, "Thank you very much. I will take that open door." But what has happened? It has brought Brandon Roseborough back into the fight with only 1.5 laps left.
Well, where do you want to be going on to the final lap of this race? That's the question that will need to be asked here for Kimmo Villiakainen in the 4th position. Courtaniemi absolutely throws the car in. Slight wiggle off the exit by Marco Sanfilippo. An opportunity is just not at the right time for the Finn. Marco Sanfilippo feels the pressure. The championship leader takes the final lap lead, with now Topi Courtaniemi hounding him every single stage of the way. This is a money moment in this race, and potentially a psychological moment for this season. Running through Eau Rouge, nose to tail, and now up the top of the hill. What have you got? Topi Courtaniemi to throw it here to Marco Sanfilippo. He had to think about which way he needed to go. He went to the outside, side by side, interlocking wheels as they head their way up the hill and try to get this move. Marco runs it deep, front to rear contact, and Courtaniemi struggles through the corner, and through goes Marco, and he will run away surely now from this point. Back for third, Jacob Reed sees Villiakainen, who's been the latest of the breakers into this section, but Reed throws one down the inside and holds on to that podium place. just for the time being. Viliakainen will give chase now through the middle sector of the lap, and Roseborough now will try and throw his name in the hat. Chucks it down the hill at Bruchel. He might get the drive off the exit too, but they've got that big left speaker's corner that comes along, and they've changed it slightly, and there's the contact. Round goes Roseborough. Viliakainen will be in fourth, and Roseborough will have a destitute end to his race, because he'll know and look behind and see that Danilo will now fly his way through, and the Canadian AJ Roper will now try and sweep around the outside and take that place away, and will fight and fight and fight, and should have the inside then, heading over to Fagna. Over though to Blanchimont. Go your leading duo. Courtiniemi's not giving this one up, but you feel he's a little bit too far back, a little bit close between those two. Hard racing between those two, but is that the moment? That is the changing of the guard in the Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix Series. Marco Sanfilippo has just survived an onslaught and wins with authority here at Spa.
Jake catches his breath. Jacob Reed is going to come across in third place. I'm looking at AJ Roper making a late move on Danilo Sanfilippo up around the outside. Look at that. He gets it done, and I believe that's Roseborough that's trying to capitalize as well. No, he doesn't put the power down. Mikko Kito steals away seventh place.
Was Viliakainen out of fuel heading to the line? That's my question now, because he was really up there with Jacob Reed, and I think he may have just had damage or something as he was trying to get through. He only just finished ahead of AJ Roper by half a second. Gallus is just going to pit Ackerman now to the line as well. So you got some brilliant races all the way over to the end of this one, including this one. John Stevens wants his name past Guillermo Martin Gonzalez Diaz, there for position, but he's not going to get that. Guillermo holds on for it, and Yanni Lehmann can't do much against Patrick Samaran. Some excellent stuff that has gone through in this one, but we will get ourselves official classified results here from the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. And Marco Sanfilippo, I think, has just put himself into the pantheon of amazing sim racing drivers with that performance. A winning margin of 4/10 over Topi Courtiniemi, with Jacob Reed picking up the final spot on the podium, a former iRacing Pro Stripes, or a World Championship level driver. Fourth would belong to Kimmo Viliakainen, with AJ Roper recovering back into fifth position after his spins early on, with Danilo Sanfilippo finishing sixth, ahead of Mikko Kito in seventh, and Brandon Roseborough on the last lap fighting for a podium ends up with just eighth place. Dylan Freckleton would finish ninth, and from the back of the field, 18 places for Jason Clapper. He gets a top 10 for his troubles.
Timothy Van Berge is across the page in 11th, and Mickey Friesen finishes 12th with a nice run up 5 positions. Daniel Gallus finishing in 13th. Bjorn Ackerman, definitely a roller coaster ride of a race, was all the way up inside the top 10, finishes in 14th. Christophe Demay with a nice run to finish in 15th. Thomas Briggs, our second biggest mover, up 15 positions to finish in 16th. Guillermo Martin Gonzalez Diaz, 17th. John Stevens, 18th. Patrick Samaran, 19th. And Yanni Lehmann in 20th.
Just confirming that Bjorn Ackerman's had a few screen freeze issues out there over the course of that race, hence why he struggled a little bit here today. Barry West in 21st, ahead of Mauro Micheletti, with Gerard Boldu finishing off in 23rd. And Jean-Francois Boscus, after his lap one troubles, would be the last driver on the leading lap, down in 24th position. It'll be one lap down for Nathan Finnegan, and then you start hitting the retirements here today. The likes of Tamas Bartfai and Jack Kent finding retirements, along with Antonio Alvarez. We saw early on what happened to Alejandro Riero, and then the likes of Christo Chinmay getting into troubles 12 laps down. The last driver in this field will be Josh Brain, 13 laps down in terms of his effort this season in this race. He will not be a happy bunny in that regard. We are going to get the chance to talk to a couple of drivers here today. Topi Courtiniemi has managed to find himself his way over to us. He stood by with Joey Atterbury.
Topi Courtiniemi, first of all, congratulations on the second place.
Oh, thanks, Joey.
We noticed maybe a little bit of a downforce difference between yourself and Marco. Is that kind of what was the speed difference between you two?
Yeah, probably. I wasn't aware what Marco's pace or top speed was before the race, so I just saw in the first lap that he was getting quite a draft on me, and so from that moment I knew that he had less downforce, so I tried to pull a gap, but didn't manage to do it this time.
So what is that like in those final closing laps when you know you've got a car that's fast on the straightaways behind you? What do you as a driver try to focus on to defend?
No, just don't brake too early, just good exits, the basics. Don't do anything stupid.
I mean, that's textbook right there, right? You got to nail the apex and nail the corner exit to keep them behind you. Looking forward, seems like Marco has really upped his game this season. Are you satisfied with the Challenger?
Oh yeah, sure. It was good to have a proper racing, proper racing for a while in this car.
That's awesome to see out there. We love watching the action, so thank you so much for coming out and racing with us every week. Is there anybody you want to say hi to?
Oh yeah, my teammate Mikko, who managed to join the broadcast race this week, and Marco, of course, for a good race, and all the other guys, and you, of course.
Oh, making me blush over here. Well, that was Topi Korteniemi finishing in the second place position today.
Yeah, he had a really nice run, but unfortunately could not hold off the charge, which was there of Marco Sanfilippo, who is proving with every single race here in the Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix Series that he is going to be absolutely fantastic. Joey, we have to talk about what's going to be coming up next week in this series, because there is one very important distinction in that it will be a completely different track to what we've got here at Spa. It's Donington Park, which comes up next, which couldn't be more chalk and cheese.
Yeah, you're talking about it. 21 laps here at Spa, 29 laps at Donington Park next week. So that should just kind of give y'all an idea of the size difference between the two. Maybe on the same sort of continent over there in Europe, but you're right, it can't get more difference. I was really impressed with the racing that came out of the new Spa today, because remember, this is the updated scan. This is the most fresh version from iRacing. It's the first time I've seen it on a broadcast. It looked fantastic. It seemed like the drivers enjoyed it. We didn't really have any problems with track limits or curbs at all. It was a great watch.
It really was. You consider that they go to some very similar circuits to Donington over the course of the season. They've got Willow Springs that's coming up. Cadwell Park for the first time will jump itself in. Some Legacy Silverstone on the horizon. And the race, of course, to December 3rd, round 13 at Brands Hatch in the championship. That will prove to be really important. Want to give a massive thanks, though, to everyone who has got this one done for us here today, from Joey, from Christian, and from Dougie as well, here as we bring our proceedings over towards a close at the Global SimRacing Channel. You can catch all of the software, hardware and equipment that has been there and brought to us here on these shows, which includes the likes of June Lalonde's music, which you can catch on Bandcamp if you haven't had the chance to already. Across your screen right now will be some of our upcoming shows here on the Global SimRacing Channel. You do not want to miss any of what is going on. If you can't catch them live with us here on the Global SimRacing Channel, you can always catch them on demand on YouTube. You can always follow our socials to get up-to-date information of what's coming up next, as well as use our website and our merchandise store for a little bit of an extra push in terms of your pace. But Marco Mania is not just like Linsanity. This is very much the real deal. He's proving that he is on top of the world right now, and all overtakes must go through him. Another win for the Sanfilippo brothers. Marco is waltzing towards a title, but the next challenge might be slightly different, because you've got to go and battle in Middle England. It's Donington Park that awaits, and we will see you there in 1 week's time.
Bye.